All right. Happy Friday, everybody. It's Friday. It's Friday. I'm not on my dance floor today because this is our question and answer session. And so as time goes on, I'm sure we will have people attending and asking live questions, and I'm really excited about that. Really excited. I don't like to be put on the spot unless it comes to dancing. I love dancing, and even if I don't have the answer for you, I don't go all like, oh, I don't have the answer. I don't know. I just simply say, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Here's my opinion. And then you can go from there. I'm not going to pretend like I know something if I don't know it. And let's always remember that dancing is an art as well. So there are probably more than one interpretation to these questions, right? So before that whole live Q&A kind of takes off, what I figured would be good for you guys is to go over common mistakes, things that I see happening a lot out there within our cha-cha rotating basics. So I think the first and biggest mistake, and you guys can blame us, the instructors, for this, um, because I know I did it in the past. I try not to do it anymore, but sometimes it sneaks out and I'm like, don't do that. But who has been dancing the cha cha and you hear the instructor or the group class teacher, whoever it is, they're counting it and they say, rock, step, cha cha cha, rock, step, cha cha cha, rock, step, cha cha cha, right? Or 1, 2, cha cha cha, 1, 2, cha cha cha. The problem with that is the cha cha cha, the way it's being said, it all sounds like it is the same beat values. Remember, this is the American cha cha. So there is not a third cha in there, okay? Which directly relates to the way the basic is executed, right? So when you're doing your 3 side steps, your chasse steps in the middle of your rock steps, your first 2 need to be your cha cha, right? Your side close. Those need to be small, okay? And then the last step is not a cha step. It is a full step. So it needs to be slightly bigger and have the whole beat value. So, I guess it's more important that you have the beat value than the size of the steps. If you can do all 3 steps big and still do half full with the beat, still have a cha-cha 1 2 3, quick 1 2 3. If you can do that, then sure, absolutely. But I think that's what I see the most of, is that one, the 1 or the, let's see, or the 5 when you're heading back to the other side, those get cut too short, and then we get off the timing and we get off the music. So watch your count 1s and your count 5s. Make sure they are a full beat, okay? And if you hear an instructor saying cha cha cha, that all sounds like half. Make sure that in your head it's half full, okay? So that's the first thing. I mentioned this a little bit with Mike yesterday, but when we add the rotation to the basic, a lot of times we get a little crazy with it, right? And we think about rotating our partner. This is from a lead perspective. We think about moving our partner to where we want to go instead of just rotating ourselves. So what happens is we end up moving our elbows outside of our own hips, right? And then things aren't lined up correctly. And so that's going to affect your balance and the way it feels with your partner. If you're ever feeling like you're dragging your partner, that could be why, because your hips are telling her to stand here, but your body is in a different spot. Okay. So again, keep everything lined up right in front of you. Wherever your hips are, that's where your partner is going to be. So make sure that's where your frame is as well. Okay. Also, when you're rotating, it is very easy to dip and lose a side. So make sure that your sides stay nice and stretched as well. Okay. This goes right with it. The elbows, try to keep those elbows in front, because the more they go back out here, again, it's going to throw your forward poise off in your posture and the way it feels with your partner. So keeping the elbows up as well. Okay. And then this is for both of lead and follow as your head positions, especially when we're learning. You want to be really aware of what your head does when you're thinking. For a lot of people, they do this, right? They kind of go internal. And I think as humans, we do that because it blocks out any distraction and we can really focus, right? So be careful that when you're practicing, especially if you're new and you're using a lot of brain work, that you don't retreat into the internal thinking master plan right here, right? You don't want to tell people you're thinking. You don't want to give them a thinking face, right? Or posture. So stand up tall, maybe even just practicing like thinking through the pattern while you're standing up tall. Like, okay, I'm visualizing myself doing the pattern, keeping my posture, and then maybe trying it. Because I tell you, I think it's our worst enemy. Sometimes is when we go into our thinking brain and it just makes everything go into there. So we have to be able to think without losing our body posture and poise. Okay. Um, and then the last thing I think I want to mention, and I think that's it. I made a list. I'm sure there's lots of other things as well, but I think these are the most important, especially in the beginning, because if you're not thinking about them in the beginning and you're doing other things when you're doing a lot of reps, then you're going to be putting those bad habits in. So, the other thing I want to talk about is your wrist. So, when we're in a frame with a partner and we're holding this hand, I'm mirrored. So, I think I'm moving into the frame, but I'm moving out. Okay. So, you have this hand. I'm going to turn to this side. And your partner's hand is being placed in. Okay. We want to make sure that both of our wrists are straight, okay, and that there's no wrinkles or creases or bending in the wrist, okay. So if we're doing this, or maybe this, or maybe this, right, we don't want any of that. We want to keep those wrists straight, okay, and poised towards this mirror thing is really messing me up. There you go. That's straight, right? There we go. Straight and towards your partner. Okay. Breaking the wrist is not going to be good habits. It's not going to help you dance well or your partner. Okay. Again, we want to move as one being with four legs and one spine. Okay. And so our arms and our hands are a tool for our partner to feel our spine where it's at. So if there's any disruption along that line to our spine, it's a lot harder for them to feel where we are and where we want to go. Okay. I always relate this like communication between your lines and your frame. And I always relate it to that old telephone game. I grew up making the homemade telephones, right? The two cups and the piece of string in between. That string represents the frame, okay, and the two cups represent you, the dancers, okay. If I don't know if any of you remember if you used those old things, but it didn't work unless that string was taut. Okay, it worked best when that string was taut. I'm guessing because the sound waves could travel down the string and not get disrupted, right? If the string was wavy, it might get bounced and reflected and passed everywhere else. So even though we're not speaking, okay, we still are communicating direction and timing through our movement. Um, and just like words, our movement can be um, miscommunicated if there's breaks in our communication device, right? I think that makes sense. It makes sense to me. I hope it makes sense to you. It does seem to make a lot of sense to my private students. If you guys have any other really good analogies, I love analogies. Maybe one day we should just have like an analogy day and like everybody tell us your analogy. What works for you and what works for you? Analogies are great. They help us get a more organic feeling and idea instead of like trying too hard to create something bring something familiar in, right? Okay, so those I think are the main mistakes. And I'll go back to number one, the biggest one, and probably my biggest pet peeve when I watch Cha Cha. And I'm not going to speak for judges, but I'm assuming that it's probably annoying to them too, is when all three of those Cha Cha steps have the same amount of timing, right? Because you're getting off timing, you're not hitting the music, you're not hitting those lines sharply. So make sure when you're doing your chasse steps in between your rock steps, the first two are half beats, and the last one is a full beat Everybody rushes that last side step. Don't rush it. Okay. If you're using your hips, that's the time to use your hips. If you're not using your hips yet, just take a moment to breathe. Okay. Don't rush and then move on to your rock step. All right, guys. So this was really fun. Great first week. I love it. I mean, dancing just makes me happy. I love talking about dance. I love teaching dance. I'm really excited about all this. So next week, we will be hitting, we're still in cha-cha. We're in cha-cha this whole month. And next week, we're going to be doing the walk around turns or the underarm turn. Okay, so the lead will be leading an underarm turn. But I'm also going to teach the lead how to turn himself as well. So we'll both be working on those walk around turns. And then we'll be able to put it together on Thursday and then have another Q&A on Friday. Okay. And I believe the week after that is crossovers. And then the week after that is the challenge step. The fourth week, I'm always going to do a little bit more challenging step for beginners, but one that is essential, and that's the crossbody lead. So we'll be getting through all that. Visit my website, mmdancellc.com, for this full schedule if you want to take a look. I'm always available for questions and things. I might not respond right away, but I will respond. All right. So I hope you guys have a fabulous weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, I did get a couple new subscribers too this week. So thank you for subscribing. So happy that you're here. Continue to share with your friends and let's have a good weekend. Okay, guys? See you next time. Bye-bye.